Throughout NBA history, the finals have had a ton of exciting, controversial, and memorable moments. Some of those moments have become iconic, while others have been lost in history. How's it going, fellas? My name's Andy, and today we're going to take a look at 7 of the weirdest moments in NBA Finals history. Alright, let's begin. Number 7, 1988, the Phantom Foul and the end of Game 7. Back in the 80s and 70s, the crowd celebrating and running onto the court was a really common thing, even when the game wasn't completely over. This would kinda happen in Game 7 of the 1988 Finals, and it had an impact at the end. You see, the Pistons were only down by 3 points, and they had possession, and there was still time to get a decent look. Bill Laimbeer miraculously made a Hail Mary pass to Isaiah Thomas, who looked like he got fouled by magic, but the game was over. In the previous game, Game 6, the ending was also a bit weird. The Pistons were up by 1, the Lakers had the ball, Kareem goes up for a sky hook, but then a foul is called? Yeah, the ref called a foul on Bill Laimbeer, even though he barely even touched him. It was a phantom foul. They never call weak contact like this at the end of the game either. Years later, even Pat Riley, who coached the Lakers, admitted that it was a phantom foul call. There was speculation that the refs favored the Lakers over the Pistons because they hated Bill Laimbeer, and overall the Pistons were not well liked amongst the rest of the NBA. A lot of people, a lot of fans, players, they hated them because of their physical play. It was a crushing loss for the Pistons, who were up 3-2 in the series at one point, but they were able to bounce back and won the next 2 championships. Number 6, 1969, the loser's MVP. So before 1969, there was no Finals MVP award. 1969 was actually the first year that the Finals MVP was given out. It was officially called the Bill Russell NBA Finals MVP award. Jerry West won the first ever award, but he did it on the losing team. The Lakers lost to the Celtics in 7 games, and coincidentally, Bill Russell was a player and the coach of the Celtics. For the series, Jerry West averaged 38 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists per game, and was by far the best player in the series among both teams. The Lakers had a few chances to tie the game, but they missed their shots and ultimately lost Game 7 by 2 points. The media awarded West with the Finals MVP, but he didn't really care about it. Quote, "All of this mattered little to Jerry West. He was overwhelmingly disgusted with another loss. He had finished Game 7 with 42 points, 13 rebounds, and 12 assists. The gestures were nice, but they didn't address his agony." It made sense why West was upset. He kinda thought it was a sympathy award. Also, after this loss, West was 0 for 6 in the finals. Yikes. Of course, it's hard to win when you keep running into the Celtics, but he was able to finally win a championship in 1972. Up until today, 1969 was still the only year the Finals MVP was given out to a player on the losing team. We've never seen it happen since then. Number 5, 2014, the King versus air conditioning. LeBron is arguably the greatest athlete and physical specimen in NBA history, a guy who rarely ever gets injured, and when he does get injured, he just shakes it off. That's why this moment was kinda strange. In Game 1 of the 2014 Finals, the air conditioning at the AT&T Center malfunctioned. The temperature inside the arena drastically increased to approximately 90 degrees Fahrenheit. In the second half, LeBron had to go to the bench multiple times because of severe cramps. The game was really close, but once the cramps started, the Spurs finished the game on a 31-9 run. Some people were making fun of LeBron for being soft or something at that time, but cramps are no joke. They're one of the worst things you could get because you don't know when they're gonna come back and you just can't do anything about it. The team tried to cool him off on the bench, gave him more fluids, and did whatever they could to stop the pain, but with no success. With 4 minutes left in the game, the Heat were only down by 2, and then LeBron had to go to the bench, and then the Spurs ended up winning by 15. Perhaps the Heat could have won Game 1 if it weren't for the cramps, but they'd still probably lose the series. Regardless, this was a moment in history that one of the most durable athletes of all time looked very vulnerable. Number 4, 1994, John Starks goes ice cold. In 1994, the finals were between the Rockets and the Knicks. Hakeem Olajuwon versus Patrick Ewing. This series was a dogfight. Neither team cracked the 100-point mark in any game. I've watched the highlights of this series, and honestly, it was kinda boring. The two teams would just throw the ball down low to Hakeem or Patrick almost every possession and wait for them to do something. They'll basically try to score or pass it out to a three-point shooter. John Starks was the biggest X factor in the series. In Game 6, he was on fire. He had 27 points, and near the end of the game, he had a chance to win the championship with a game-winning three, but the shot was blocked by Hakeem. Series tied at 3-3. Now, Starks was playing really well in the previous 5 games, and nobody on the Rockets could stop him. He was shooting like 7 threes a game on over 40%, which was ridiculous in that era. But in Game 7, he had one of the worst finals performances ever, going 2 for 18 from the field, including 0 for 11 from three-point land. He set the NBA Finals record for most three-pointers missed in a single game. This record would hold up for 21 years until Steph Curry broke the record, going 2 for 15 from three-point land in Game 2 of the 2015 Finals. The Knicks would lose Game 7 by 6 points, and you gotta wonder if Starks just had a normal performance, they could have won the title. He said that, "To this day, people bring it up. You can't get away from it, but it doesn't stop you from living." Number 3, 2013, the tape. At this point, the Spurs were up 3-2 over the Miami Heat. With 28 seconds remaining in Game 6, a ton of Heat fans started to exit the building, believing that the game and the series were over. The Spurs only had a 5-point lead after Ginobili's free throw, so the game was far from over. I mean, if I had tickets to the finals, I would stay until the end, even if it's a blowout, but a 5-point lead with 28 seconds remaining, a comeback could certainly happen. But I guess those Heat fans gave up and just wanted to leave early and dodge the traffic. The security guys even started to pull out the tape, preparing for the cameramen and reporters to run onto the court when the Spurs win the championship. I haven't seen this happen this prematurely before. The game wasn't even close to being over. Yeah, there were 28 seconds left, but Miami had possession. A couple of missed free throws here and there, and a clutch three-pointer by Ray Allen would force overtime. Even in this photo, you can clearly see the tape on the sidelines, which is pretty funny. One of the most iconic shots in recent history, and the tape near Allen's feet makes this photo 10 times better. Afterwards, the Heat fans that left the arena were trying to get back in, but security would not let them, as you can see in this clip here. As we all know, in a drastic turn of events, Miami won Game 6 in overtime and then won Game 7 as well. That tape was gone for good. Number 2, 2008, Paul Pierce and his fake injury. Game 1 was Pierce's first ever game in the finals. The game was going as normal as you'd expect it. It was very close, the crowd was going crazy, and the Lakers-Celtics rivalry was back. And in the third quarter, Pierce falls down and grabs his knee. His teammates had to help him up and carry him off the floor and onto a wheelchair. The Boston crowd was, of course, very worried, because it looks like Pierce just suffered a major injury. Or did he? So Pierce left the game with 6:48 remaining in the third quarter and then returned to the game after just 1.5 minutes of game time. He didn't look hurt, he wasn't limping, there was nothing wrong with him at all. In a moment of relief, I guess, Pierce was back on the courts playing like his usual self. After the game was over though, he got killed for his antics. Everyone was mocking him for pulling off a fake Willis Reed. There was even some speculation before that Pierce shat himself in the middle of the game, so he used the wheelchair to cover it up as he went into the locker room. Yeah, either way, the Celtics won Game 1 and Pierce had 22 points. And finally, at number 1, 1976, the end of Game 5. Now, this was a doozy. The series featured the Boston Celtics and Phoenix Suns. It was tied at 2 games apiece. The second overtime had some interesting moments. With 4 seconds left, the Suns were up by 1 point. John Havlicek runs down the floor and hits a jumper, giving the Celtics the lead. All of a sudden, the crowd starts running onto the floor, thinking the game was over, but after the review, they put 1 second on the clock, Suns ball. Now, this is where Paul Westphal did the strangest yet smartest thing I've ever seen in basketball. He purposely called a timeout, knowing that his team did not have any left. This resulted in a technical foul where Boston hit the free throw and extended the lead to 2 points. But this also allowed the Suns to advance the ball to the half-court line, giving them a better chance to make a shot, as opposed to making like a full-court pass or something. So, the ball was inbounded to Gar Hurd, who turned around and hit the game-tying shot to send the game to a third overtime. I guess you can say that it was the shot heard around the world. I'm sorry guys. Unfortunately, the Suns would finally lose the game 128 to 126. 5 different players fouled out between the two teams, and the game lasted about 4 hours. The timeout call was genius by Westphal, who was also the leading scorer on the team. It's no surprise he became a pretty good coach too. And that's all folks. I'm sure I missed some other weird, unusual moments in the finals, but those were the 7 on my list. Let me know in the comments if you have any others. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed that video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.